All right, folks, welcome to Cooking with Scott. And today I'm going to do one of my favorite dishes, beef Burgundy. Um, it's a bit of work. It's not a complicated dish to make, but there are a lot of ingredients, a lot of parts, and I also make my own stock, which takes about a day. Only use my own homemade beef stock. But so basically, we're going to start with about 2.5 pounds of just beef stew meat. You could also use sirloin tips, which are actually nicer. I get them at Trader Joe's. They come in cubes and you can cut them better. This has been salted. Just added some sea salt, some pepper. Gonna let that soak in a bit. And then we're gonna get to our list of ingredients. There are many, one of which is cognac. So let's get to it. All right, so step one is we're gonna take some ground pancetta, about 1/4 pound, and in a large Dutch oven, we're gonna cook that down, try to cook away some of that fat. And as with all great meals, they start with bacon. So that's the first step. If you don't have pancetta, you can use prosciutto or you can use bacon. I boil the bacon first to get the smoke out of it, but that's step one. All right, so I've cooked that bacon down, or pancetta. Just get it nice and brown. I'm gonna cook away or cook down the fat, okay? Now I'm just gonna take that and set it aside, and we're gonna leave all that brown stuff there. And this is step one. It's really step two because step one was salting the meat, but that's a given. Next we're gonna brown our meat. We're gonna dredge it in all-purpose flour and then brown it. All right, step two. We're gonna take our beef and we're just gonna dredge it just gently in all-purpose flour like that. Shake off the excess, and I'm gonna brown it in my Dutch oven, which I've added a couple of tablespoons of olive oil to, mixed together with the bacon. Pulled out the bacon. Just gonna set that aside, and we're just gonna brown the meat in olive oil and the drippings from the bacon. Takes a little time, a little work. You're gonna have to do them piece by piece. Try to turn them and get all sides, but you really want to get a nice brown on the meat. It's gonna add a lot of flavor to this dish. So that's our next step. And here's just a visual of just browning the meat. Okay, we're not cooking it, just under medium heat. Want to try to brown it as best you can. Try to get all sides. Just keep turning them. And try to get it browned on all sides, and then we're gonna remove them. Do it in batches. All right, folks. So while the meat is browning, what we're gonna do, we're gonna just roughly chop these 2 carrots and this onion. Okay, and that's gonna form the base. We're gonna use other carrots later in the process. I like to use these carrots of many colors, but they're gonna go later at the end. We're also gonna finish it with some pearl onions, but again, those go at the end. This is part of our base, so I'm just gonna roughly chop these while the meat's browning. Okay, so what we're gonna do, take a look inside of our pan here. You can see that's the char from browning our meat, okay? And we want that. That's some really good stuff. It's gonna be really yummy. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna take our carrot that we've roughly chopped, and onion and carrot. Okay, I'm gonna turn that heat back up, and medium heat. I'm gonna get that in there, and here comes the fun part. Just get my spoon. Okay. So, move that around a little bit. Okay, and we're gonna do a little salt and pepper. I always like to salt and pepper my veggies. Remember the cognac? Okay, so here we go. Pepper. So about between 1/4 and 1/2 cup, a couple of ounces of cognac. And be careful. And we're just gonna flambe that. And that'll burn out in about 10-15 seconds. And And that's going to really give us some great flavor. And then we're just going to sort of deglaze the pan and get all that char off. Alright, so I've deglazed the pan, and so now with the cognac, I'm going to add about 3 cloves of chopped garlic, and just want those onions, see how they're like nice and translucent. I want to get that nice sear on them. That's we're just developing flavor. We have that flambéed cognac in there. Now with the garlic, it's going to be really delicious. And now we're gonna start putting the dish together. Okay, so I'm gonna deglaze that pan a little bit. I've let that garlic cook down for a couple of minutes. Try to deglaze the pan as best as possible. Get that brown off of the bottom. And now let's put it together. Remember our bacon that's going in. Okay. Meat's going right in. Notice I just put it right back on its board. I'm a fan of making as little dishes, dirty dishes as possible. Okay, so our beef is going in. We have a jumper there. Okay, and now just gonna give that a little stir. And here's where the magic starts. So first thing we're going to do, I'm going to take, this is a homemade stock, homemade beef stock I made, cooked it overnight, and I'm just going to strain in about 2 cups of that. So this ladle I know when full holds about a cup, so okay, so that's about 2 cups of homemade beef stock. And the magic now is we're going to add wine. How much? A lot. Pretty much a whole bottle. We want to cover the meat. And I'm using a Cabernet Sauvignon here. Traditionally, this dish was done with Burgundy wine, which is a Pinot Noir. I like a little more body. I'm more of a fan of the Cab. I'm going to turn my heat up. So the meat should be submerged. So a little bit more. And as you can see, I've pretty much used the entire bottle of Cabernet. We're going to add a bay leaf, and we're going to add a couple of sprigs of fresh parsley. And basically going to just let that braise for a couple of hours covered and until the meat is fall apart, and then we will get to the other steps. So I'm going to put in a bay leaf, 1 bay leaf, and a couple of sprigs of fresh thyme, rather. I'm sorry, fresh thyme. All right, so I put in my fresh thyme, a couple of sprigs, a large bay leaf, and I turn the heat up just to get a nice boil going on here. I'm going to scrape that bottom, and it's come to a boil, about boiling now. And once we hit that boil, I'm going to turn the heat down to a simmer, and we're going to put our cover on. So I'm going to turn it down now to a simmer. I'm going to put my cover on, and we will basically just stir it from now on every 15 minutes or so, scraping the bottom to get any bits loose. And that's basically what we're going to do for the next 2 hours or so, until the meat is nice and tender, and then we'll get to the next steps. All right, guys, so this has been cooking for about an hour and a half, and what I'm going to do now is I'm going to vent the hood a little bit, like slightly cover it, and try to cook away some of that water. You can see it's thickened up a little bit. So what we're gonna put the cover on, just semi, sort of like that, and just try to cook away a little bit of that water. All right, guys. So we've been cooking for a little over an hour and a half, and the sauce is starting to thicken. So what I'm gonna do, took about a dozen of our carrots, and I'm just gonna work them in. I've split a couple of the larger ones, and these are again the multicolored carrots. This is my own little twist on the dish on the beef burgundy, but we'll just work them in. And now I'm going to turn the heat back up a little bit, just for a minute, because this is going to stop my cooking a little bit. And we're just going to let that kind of go for about another hour to cook those carrots down. We want them firm but not mushy. All right, so next steps, these are our pearl onions. We're going to drop them in boiling water for 3 minutes. That's to peel the skin. All right, guys, so I just want to show you what we do with the pearl onions, because we're using fresh ones. We boil them for 3 minutes, and then we're going to cut on the end, just like that, and we'll pop that out. That's how we skin them, you see? And you can take off any excess like that, but that's what we're going to do for each one. So just cut like that, and the onion will just sort of pop out. Oops. All right, folks, so our stew's been cooking for about almost 3 hours now. So what I'm doing is I'm just dropping in some white mushrooms. These are kind of big, so I've cut them a bit, but may not be necessary depending on the size. So it's almost 8 ounces of mushrooms, and they're gonna cook down. So I'm just gonna drop them right in and let them cook down for a minute. And also, you know, as you can see, this is getting thicker. We could always add a little more stock. You should always keep a half a cup or a cup of extra beef stock, just to thicken that back up, or just loosen it up, or a little bit of water. So, and then here, I melted about a tablespoon of butter, and what we're gonna do with that is we're gonna brown our pearl onions. And that's basically it. We want to get them under a good amount of heat and get them nice and browned. They're gonna go on top, and that's it. She'll be done. All right, so our pearl onions are nicely browned. Just gonna put them right on top of the finished beef burgundy, and that's it. That's beef burgundy. All right, and so for the finale, we're gonna serve it over mashed Yukon Gold potatoes. You can serve it over whatever you like, whatever starch you like. Really love this one, but that's how it's done. That's beef burgundy.